Trump and Putin just redefine the rules of the game. While Washington's national security apparatus grinds to a halt, Moscow plays its hand with cold precision. The US, once the global standard-bearer for countering Russian sabotage and disinformation, is now in retreat, right as the Kremlin sharpens its blades. And it's not by accident. This is a shift driven by policy, not oversight. Since taking office, Trump's administration has systematically scaled back the cross-agency effort that once acted as a bulwark against Russia's shadow war. The FBI's interference task force? Gone. Homeland Security's disinformation monitors? Disbanded. The Department of Justice team seizing Russian oligarch assets? Dismantled. The coordinated effort that once spanned the National Security Council, the State Department, and America's closest European allies has been reduced to a ghost operation. No formal meetings, no clear directives, just silence. Meanwhile, Russia marches on. Its shadow operatives, criminals recruited across Europe, set fires in London warehouses, attempt assassinations, and plant bombs on cargo planes. The sabotage has slowed, but only because Moscow is watching the US pull back. American officials warned Berlin that Russian agents were plotting to assassinate the CEO of Rheinmetall, the company supplying Ukraine with vital weapons. German intelligence foiled the plot, but the chilling message was clear. The Kremlin's reach extends far beyond the battlefield. But Trump is making his move. In a 2-hour call with Putin, he struck a deal that both stunned and pleased the Kremlin. No, not a ceasefire. Nothing that significant. Instead, they agreed to a temporary halt on attacks against each other's energy infrastructure. A 30-day pause. No planes grounded. No soldiers pulled back. Just a symbolic gesture dressed up as diplomacy. For Putin, it's a masterstroke. An empty concession that costs him nothing, while giving his forces time to regroup in Ukraine's east. Trump's White House calls it progress. Ukraine calls it capitulation. Zelensky, fighting with diminishing support, agrees to the energy strike moratorium, but makes it clear Putin rejected a full ceasefire. Russia keeps its foot on the gas, driving Ukrainian forces back in the east, forcing Kyiv into a fight for survival. The US media scrambles, but the White House offers only canned lines about proportional responses. Trump speaks glowingly about the call, describing it as almost 2 hours of productive diplomacy. He floats the idea of a contract for peace, hinting at possible territorial concessions from Ukraine, a move that would reshape the map of Europe on Russia's terms. And while Washington's counter-sabotage machinery rusts, Moscow plays the long game. Russian-backed candidates push through elections in Eastern Europe. Romania's pro-Putin presidential candidate, Călin Georgescu, has his election annulled after intelligence links his campaign to Moscow's meddling. Trump's Vice President J.D. Vance criticizes the annulment. The message is clear. Russia's influence extends into U.S. politics, and the administration doesn't seem to mind. This is more than a policy shift, it's a geopolitical realignment. Trump's détente with Russia signals to Europe that the US is backing away from its role as the West's protector. The once ironclad alliances built around NATO are starting to look fragile. Germany, France, and Britain push for a broader ceasefire, but without American weight behind them, the calls ring hollow. And while the US media reports on de-escalation, Moscow sharpens its knives. The Eagle S, a Russian Shadow Fleet tanker, drags its anchor across the Baltic seabed, slicing through undersea cables and severing Europe's communication lines. Western intelligence knows it's sabotage. Moscow denies it. Washington remains silent. This isn't just a diplomatic shift, it's a strategic surrender. The US, once the spearhead of the West's resistance to Russian aggression, is now stepping back. The Kremlin isn't just gaining ground in Ukraine, it's gaining influence in Washington. The shadow war is far from over, but America, it seems, is already packing up.